be wondering, if you're watching on the video, why the heck are there some burgers on the screen? Well, we're going to find out today how middle managers are very similar to burgers. And the way that relates to making money or running a business is that most companies obsess over executives and frontline staff while they ignore that group that actually makes the strategy happen. It's Sally Foley-Lewis here, and she has helped more than 20,000 managers worldwide unlock performance, engagement, and productivity through her famous burger framework for middle managers. And we're here to talk about it on the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert Plank. We are brought to you by dfypodcast.com. We handle the podcast backend editing, publishing, and promotion so you can focus on the interview. And today's interview that we're going to be speaking about is maybe blowing away some myths about middle managers that CEOs and executives still believe today. And many organizations treat leadership development as an expense rather than an investment. So perhaps if you might be a newly promoted manager or someone who's concerned about AI possibly replacing us, or we're just trying to get our delegation figured out, whatever the current problem is, Miss Sally Foley-Lewis is here to teach us about the burger method and what middle managers need to know. So, Miss Sally, how are you today? I'm hungry already.
I'm hungry too. Thank you, Robert. And it's so nice to be with you and to see you once again, and to talk all things burgers. But we're not really talking burgers, but we are talking burgers.
Okay, well, see, I have to know because like the burger idea, like, I mean, who doesn't love a burger, right? It's like not liking pizza or ice cream. It's one thing to say, well, I don't like Italian food or I don't like fish, but like burgers, everyone likes that. So what is the burger all about?
Yeah, to me, when I think about middle managers, I think about burgers, and middle managers are like burgers because the best is in the middle. And that doesn't negate the buns. We need the buns because for you to have a full burger, you need a top bun and a bottom bun. But let's face it, without the middle, you just got boring carbs. No offense to the bun. And I'm sure you could replace the bun with a nice rye or even with some portobello mushrooms or anything else like that. But let's face it, you still need the middle in order to have a really good burger. And so the way in which I approach leadership development for mid-level leaders is to really highlight on some real key ingredients and a bit of secret sauce for high performance. It's not the whole idea of leadership development is not a new one, but how I frame it up, I make sure that it's memorable. It's people engage with it, and we have some fun with it. And so I really do use ingredients and traditional classic burger ingredients in order to help middle managers really connect with those key elements of themselves and their skills and their capabilities and their confidence and courage to be really high performing.
Oh, fun. Well, the metaphor continues to amaze me because like you think about like a burger or a sandwich, there's lots of contrast, isn't there? Like the bun is different from the cheese, and there's like the lettuce or there's the tomato and there's the ketchup, and some parts
Mm.
are like, soft or liquidy, and some parts are kind of like hard, sharp contrast. And I can see how it when someone's kind of thrown into this new middle leadership kind of role, they might have to use different ingredients in different combinations. And when they're put together in the right way, it's magical. It's like, why does the lettuce and the meat and the bread, why does it all work together? And somehow it does. And so when someone says, okay, like there's a lot of ingredients, a lot that goes into this whole middle management thing, but I don't even know where to begin. I'm so overwhelmed. Like, what should we know going in?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. And so let's build a burger together, okay? So when you think about the ingredients that you would put in a burger, we always start with the most important piece, and that's the protein. Now, whether it's a soy foods tofurkey patty for a vegan friend of ours, or if it's way down the other end of the spectrum and you full animal, it's up to you, but it's protein. Okay, that is the foundational piece of a burger. And so we start with that. And what that actually equates to in my burger program is your values. Because if we don't reconnect or stay connected, have front of mind our core values, then what's the Katy Perry song when she says, if you believe everything, you'll fall. If you don't stand up for yourself, you'll fall for anything, kind of line. I'm butchering her line there,
I
but
don't even, I don't even know that one. Yeah.
it's about staying true to you. When we know our values, when we walk in alignment with our values, then we walk with integrity. They keep us strong, especially in times of crisis and challenge at work. And let's face it, not too many days go by without a crisis or a challenge or an opportunity, as we might want to phrase it. So your values, we start with values, and that also then builds into how do we help ourselves and our team align with the organization's values. And it's not actually enforcing someone to adopt the exact values of the organization, but it's about seeing the connection and the alignment and the way in which our own personal values can value add, can amplify, can support, can actually elevate the work of the organization and be connected to the organization's values. Gone are the days where we should be seeing those values posters covered in dust on walls. We should be allowing our people to show up in their entirety as their full selves, and then having the conversation around, well, if these are the organization's values, what are your values? How do you see them align? And then if there's tension, how do we actually leverage that tension for the benefit of the work that needs to be done and the purpose of the organization? So as an example of an ingredient, we start with the core one, the most important one, and we start with the inner work and we build our burger up from there, because our next ingredient is actually cheese. And cheese, I think of it as self-awareness, because when it's melted, it just brings everything together. And if we don't have a level of self-awareness, then, and let's face it, we've all met someone who's clueless. So, we need cheese. And I often think of it as really tasty, mature cheese. That emotional intelligence, that self-awareness is linked to maturity. What do we learn and know about ourselves that helps us show up to be the best version of ourselves? Because to me, great leadership starts with exceptional self-leadership, and that is around self-awareness. So then we have cheese, and then we just keep building with the other ingredients as we go.
Very nice. So we have these values in place and we have self-awareness. And I'm curious about like the unknown unknowns. Like if someone is a middle manager and maybe they have these blind spots, or there's maybe like unanticipated problems. Like, is there anything that maybe like you wish you'd known going into middle management, or maybe like what every middle manager should ask themselves?
Absolutely. There's probably a list a mile long of what I wish I knew. But I guess it's down to being open to communication and being curious. And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with when we get into mid-level leadership, is because all of a sudden we've been promoted into that role, or we step into that role, and there's this magical thing that seems to happen where all of a sudden, because we're now in an elevated role, we have to have all the answers. And looking back and now knowing this and having experienced being a middle manager myself, and also being a CEO leading middle managers, you don't have to have all the answers. What you absolutely need to do is have a presence of mind to be curious and ask great questions, and then the calmness to listen, because organizations employ people for their skills and abilities. We've got to remember that. We've got to ask those questions so those skills, those abilities, those expertises get to shine, and then we create the processes, the procedures, the actions in order to deliver the work that needs to be delivered. And so it's not about knowing the answers. It's actually about having a presence of mind, a curiosity, and listening.
I love it. That's good life advice in general, right? That we want to grow leaders and the workplace and at home. And if you're the one who's the know-it-all, well, you probably don't know it all. And if you're the person that's there to solve all the problems, then, well, now these things depend on you, and you kind of have all these weak people around you. You want to improve others, right? You want to have that ripple effect. And so you've discovered, or you've built something that's like this really cool idea that makes it fun and interesting to help others. And I'm curious about the people that you've helped, either with this training or just what you've done in the workplace. Like, do you have any interesting sort of transformation story to share with us about somebody that you've helped out?
Oh, thank you. I've had lots of people come back to me and say, I didn't realize how I had stepped away from my values so far. I didn't realize how I had been run thin with my energy and my focus, and because the organizational culture had sucked me in so far that I'd lost sight of myself. So I've had a lot of feedback like that, and reconnecting with values has been a really valuable exercise, as well as one particular leader said to me, this is a little while ago now, but what he said to me was, I always thought that when you entered an organization, you must adopt the organization's values. And I would be ramming that down everyone's throat constantly. And then I'd have lots of turnover. I'd have lots of unhappy people. I would get standard performance, but no one wanted to necessarily go above and beyond and stand out. And it wasn't until I realized that I was actually stopping people from being their full selves and converting the conversation from you must have these values to how do we bring them all together. That was a major turning point. And he said that when he started having those different conversations, and he started with simply asking people what their values were and listening, he said it was almost an overnight transformation for him and his team, which was great. Another one was around communication, where I used the tomato as the metaphor for communication. And I talk about how we often think we just got to give out this information so we can get the work done. But I think we miss a major element here, that particularly for mid-level leaders, you're in the most powerful position in the organization because you get to inspire down, collaborate across, and influence up. And I think it's more than just information dissemination in any direction. And it's about stopping and thinking, what is the critical intent of this message? Am I here to engage and motivate and get people connected to their work? So I need to inspire my team to really connect with this piece of work. Or it could be, I'm really lonely. I feel isolated. This is a typical one. I felt really isolated and lonely when I was a middle manager. So how do I craft a message that helps bring my peers left and right of me together to collaborate, whether it's simply on just talking about the culture of the organization or the politics and the games that people play and how we can support each other. Or it could be looking into more pragmatic things like resource sharing and cost efficiencies. And then the other one is also influencing up. And that's where talking about not just sending problems up the line, but sending them up with ideas and research and stories. And I had one of my, a dear friend of mine who I was running her through this program as a bit of a one-on-one process, the burger program. And she said, my boss came to me and dumped this massive folder on my desk and said, here you go, Michelle, just give that to the troops. Do your thing, do your rah-rah thing, and get them to implement it. And she said, I just looked at that folder and went, yay, can't wait. There was no inspiration. There was no acknowledgement of her capability. There was no, have a read, let me know what you think. There was none of that. Now, she can sit back from that experience and she can look at it and say, yeah, my boss believes I can do it. So there was that unsaid component of it. He wouldn't have given it to me if he didn't think I could do it. I get that. But still, it was just a dump and run. It was not a piece of inspiration. And so the energy that Michelle had to muster from further below zero up to then inspire her team, she said, while I hated experiencing that, it was an absolute lesson in how I then brought my team on board to do the work. So that was kind of cool. So there's lots of different stories around how this program has worked for people. It's as a burger framework, that's only a few years old, but the actual work that I've done with middle managers over the years has been very similar. And I've had some amazing stories of, I've had a wife ring me, tell me that the program that I ran with her husband, who was in one of my programs, saved their marriage, which I thought was extreme, but how, that was a bit of a mind-blowing moment, because
Yeah.
she said it made him realize that A, he didn't need to have all the answers, and B, it made him understand boundaries, and it made him appreciate his staff's boundaries. And it also helped him to respectfully push back on demands that were coming down that weren't accommodating or considering the existing priorities at play. And so being able to craft communication in a way that actually helped this person take back a sense of control in their job was really critical, because the knock-on effect was he would take all that yucky feeling home, and not necessarily, was terrible, but it was, over time, when we're not happy, we're at work for a long, long time. And if we're not happy and we take some of that home, because we just do, we're human, it has that effect to leak out over everyone, right? So that was nice to know that a marriage was saved.
Yeah, so it's benefited others in many ways. So what I'm getting from all this is like communications is important, and that maybe there's a more careful approach we can take, right? If we say, well, here's where I'm starting from and here's where I want to go, and I want to assign this to someone or get some result, maybe there's a better way I can go about it, because if I'm too direct, harsh, selfish, uncaring, then the other person that I'm communicating with might have to do a lot of extra unnecessary work, and then they have to begin on the task, versus if I can just do a few things to make it easier and be more curious and say, hey, here's some possible solutions. So if there's all these techniques that you have, then everyone can benefit, and it just takes a little bit of like nuance, tweaking, a little bit of a new way of going about it. And so you've given us quite an education about what middle managers should know, and some of it goes over my head because you've dealt with this whole world that I'm not a part of. But as far as middle managers and what the problems they face, the myths about them, and so many other things, do you think there might be a missing question in our conversation today that I should be asking you, I just don't know to ask you?
Oh, for sure. Well, you could ask me anything, and I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. And the one piece of advice I give to all middle managers is to slow down. Just slow it down. Unless you are actually working in a hospital emergency, triaging people as they come in with blood and guts everywhere, which is not all of us, let's face it. That's the minority,
Yeah.
right? Majority of middle managers do not work in that environment. So slow it down. Slow it down so that you give yourself and you gift yourself and your team and the important work that you do enough space to think. I'm sitting in a volunteer role where I'm the actual national president of an organization, and I'm seeing some people rush at things, and all that does is it skips steps, it skips thinking. It's well intended to get things done, but if we just slow it down, there is no urgency. There is no urgency whatsoever. So if we just slow it down, it allows us to ask better questions. It allows us to check for gaps. And that's not about being a negative towards the work being presented. It's actually about caring enough to ask and caring enough to make sure that we don't inadvertently make a mistake or miss something down the line. So the one piece of advice I give to all middle managers, and to myself if I was, back when I was a first middle manager, slow it down, definitely. And I think the other question that comes to mind, particularly at the moment, Robert, is all about AI and the impact of AI. We have seen across multiple media platforms that AI is taking mid-level manager roles. And while in some industries, yes, that has happened and it may continue to happen. But the reality is, and even Microsoft on one of their podcasts, this was announced, that as AI improves and increases, the need for human-centric leadership will also increase. And so to me, I want all middle managers who may be having a sense of this impending doom of AI, I want you to think of it in a different framework. And that is, AI is not a leadership tool. It's actually a productivity tool. And to remember, garbage in equals garbage out. We've all played around on AI, put in a prompt and went, that's not what I asked for. When you read it back, that's exactly what you asked for. So get better prompting, right? And so garbage in is garbage out. AI is a productivity tool. It is not a leadership tool. You will still need to be the human-centered leader that the team and the organization needs. And in actual fact, use AI to get the boring, the mundane, the routine, the systematized tasks done, to free you up to actually spend that critical time with your people. You know, a lot of middle managers are doing work, they're being individual contributors, plus they're also leading people, plus they're also leading processes. So where in the processes and the routines can AI help you, so you can then amplify your people component? That's what I would be
Ooh.
saying. That's the question. AI.
Very valuable, and and I think we could all use some regular advice, like on a regular basis about AI, and that's helpful for me, is to have AI do those boring tasks. That way, it can free you up for the better focus and to better be a better communicator and human being, and get the job done, and in whatever form that takes. And so, if someone says, "I'm really inspired by what Miss Sally Foley-Lewis has to say, I want to learn from her. Maybe she can speak at my event or find out about her books or her training, etc." What can they find out about you, and where should they go?
Just Google my name, Sally Foley-Lewis, because there is actually only one of me, which many people might say that's a good thing. There is only one of me. So Sally Foley-Lewis, I would love to help mid-level leaders, you know, really amplify their courage, capability, and confidence. And I love working with organizations who can see that and know that. And, you know, one of the things that I really want to do a not so humble brag, if that's okay, is that when the program is run in its entirety and we look at the application element of the program and do an assessment, there is a return on investment. And I love seeing those numbers come in, that there is a ROI for developing middle managers.
Very nice. So it's the juice is worth the squeeze, as they say. So this is
Yeah.
really important stuff. We can't just wing it. There are techniques. We need to learn how to be better leaders, lead from the middle, and help other people in whatever form that takes. So do that Google search. That's sallyfoleylewis.com, and you might end up at sallyfoleylewis.com and end up finding about her books, her bio, her accomplishments, and how she can benefit you and your organization. So Google Sally Foley-Lewis and find her at sallyfoleylewis.com. And as we're checking out your blog and your education and your keynote topics, videos, and so on, it's time for the scary part of the show, Miss Sally Foley-Lewis, where I tried to stump you. I tried to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Oh, I think I have to come back to the lesson of slowing it down. I'm a very fast decision maker, and I myself have tripped over myself in rushing into decisions and then having to come back and fill the gaps, or you know, make up for the mistakes that could have possibly been seen if I'd slowed down. Nothing is so urgent in the world and the work that I do that requires it to be going so fast. It's excitement, it's emotion, it's the joy of being able to deliver. And I think for any mid-level leader, that's a lesson that is well worth its weight in gold. Slow down. You set the pace and you set it for everybody, because as a leader, you're also a role model. And so, you know, you want other people to be thinking better, deeper, more thoroughly in the work that they're doing. So if you're rushing and they see you rushing, they're going to rush too. So be mindful that if your pace is a race, it might not go so well.
Very wise. So we want others to slow down with us, so we should slow down ourselves. So check her out, SallyFoley-Lewis.com, and we'll see you there. And thank you very much, Miss Sally, for being very wise and helpful and generous with your time, and very grateful that you were here. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert. Great to see you.